Okay, new phone. Let's try this again. So it's been months since I've done another one of these. Um, Part of the reason why was because my phone was going to crap, wouldn't take the videos. I wanted a new phone. And in the meantime, I have upgraded to this new schwanky Samsung S21 Plus. Got a really good camera, blah, 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 blah. We'll see how this goes. Um, I didn't wear my glasses. I wore my contacts so that light wouldn't reflect. And then I realized that I have a bunch of notes this time. Like tried to get organized and need to wear reading glasses because I'm old as dirt. So let's hope they don't reflect. Okay, so since the last time I recorded one of these, I've finished a few things. I finished the papillon that I was working on, the butterfly shawl. It's already going to live with its owner. I was very happy with the outcome. I was very happy using German short rows on it. I think it looked great. I would like to knit another one in the future, but not for a while. I need a break. I am being yelled at by my cat from the top of her tower, who disapproves of me speaking in general. And she says, yes, she disapproves of me speaking in general. Yes, there she is, right there. This is the boss, and she disapproves of speaking in general. Yeah. So, I had the Space Clouds cardigan that was a test knit that I really did like. There was too much work trying to figure out the pattern. The pattern wasn't very well written. That was by Hook Mountain. She's got other patterns that are delightful. I'm not sure that she's used to sizing patterns up to fit plus size people. I will certainly give her patterns a try again in the future, just not this one. I am done with it. So I have frogged all that yarn out, and I've picked out another pattern. I saw a pom-pom that had, I need you to not put your toe beans in the yarn, Twinkle Toes. Yeah. Oh, she's so pretty. Pom Pom had a bunch of raglan, like a whole series of like 5 raglan sweaters. So I bought that issue. I don't remember what it is. It's one of the few things I didn't write down. But I picked one out of that particular issue, and it's a pattern called Woodwardia, written by Lydia Gluck. And I'm going to knit it next with the yarn that I frogged out of the Space Clouds. One of the things I was talking about in my last podcast was the Walk in the Dawn cardigan, which was finished, but I needed to pick up and put a button band on it. And I did. I picked up and put a button band on it. And I did it real badly. Oh, it was hot garbage. So one of the things that I have done, started yesterday, is frogging the button band off again. And I'm going to redo it because one of the things I realize is I've picked up too many stitches on the V-necked angle. And look at this nonsense right here. Look at that. That is not a shawl collar. And then I put, well, this is just a hot mess, isn't it? As per, my life in general. I did put buttonholes in it, but I did the buttonholes wrong, and I put them in wrong locations, and I have decided in the meantime what I would really like is just right here where it finishes, right there, I would just like one buttonhole, and then I will just button it there and the rest will hang open. That's what I've decided. So I'm frogging out this collar and I'm going to redo it because In the meantime, I've done a couple of other things and went, oh, yeah, that was my bad plan. Like, I just should have freaking Googled it in the first place. If I had just Googled what I had in my brain, what I wanted to do, I would have had it down in 30 seconds. I didn't. That's on me. I am sinking down in the seat and I disappear out of frame. Oh, I'm gone. So let's try to sit up straight, shall we? So that's the walking the dog and cardigan, which is finished and now unfinished and is going to be redone. The sailboat mittens I showed are still living in their project bag in purgatory. Let's try sitting up a little bit. There we go. They're still sitting in a project bag in purgatory because I don't have it in me to work on them right now. Like, it's a very complicated pattern and I'm not sure where I was, and I know it was on the thumb, but I don't know where I was at on the thumb, and I don't want to. So as it gets colder, because it is now November the blah, 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 in Minneapolis. So we are edging into wintertime. We've had a really nice long fall. I mean, nice long fall. But the winter winds have blown in, and I probably will want warmer mittens soon. But until that time, they're sitting on a shelf in the living room in a bag that my friend Flower gave me. It's a sushi bag. It's so cute. But they're sitting there in purgatory. I finally got a fat squirrel bag. I had to set a timer to make sure I remembered to go get one when they went on sale. And I did that because it was the fall bags, and that's my favorite season and my favorite themes, and I wanted one, so I went and picked up a fat squirrel bag. Like, I don't need a project bag in the slightest, but I wanted one fat squirrel in my life, and I have it now, and I couldn't be happier with it. I love it so much. Since the last time, I have knit a few things that are already out of the house. I knit a toddler baby cardigan out of Cascade Superwash 220. It was super cute. It is way too big for the Schnooperbo. Like, way too big. But it's wintertime now, and she's getting bigger, so maybe by the end of the winter, it will fit on her relatively decent. But it was cute, and she's adorable, and I really needed to knit her something, so I did. I knit Raina number 4, I don't know. But I had a skein of Freya yarn, the ombre cakes. And it was a small cake, and it was in pink, and I don't like pink. And I had intended to use it to knit a colorwork hat. But that was at the very beginning of my knitting journey, and I did not realize at the time that if you're trying to get changes in a colorwork hat, you need really short changes, and your best bet is just to do mini skeins. Because this was a much longer color change from like white through pale pinks into dark pink. And I was tired of pink sitting on my shelf looking at me, so I wanted it to go. And I mean, it was a dark pink, but it was still like in that baby pink shade, which I just loathe. So I knitted up a Raina and found a home for it, and away it went. I knit to use up some yarn in the basement in the stash. I took a moth-eaten cake of Sun Valley Fibers 100% merino non-superwash and some gray that I had. I have no idea what the gray was. I had some gray. And I knit them together. Oh, I know what it was. It was 3 Irish Girls sock, whatever their sock is called. I don't remember. It was 3 Irish Girls. And I had only bought it for the name of the yarn. It was the colorway Winter Soldier. And so I knit a brioche hat and cowl. The brioche hat was Quite Squishy, was the name of the pattern. And the cowl's name was Brioche for Beginners. I had knit brioche in the past, but only one project. And so this was to familiarize myself with it again and use up yarn. And those have gone off to a friend in Wisconsin and are living there. And she looks really cute in them. So that was great. I knit the Quaking Aspen Cow by Kat Archer in some Madeline Tosh pashmina that I had in the basement to give to my sister because we have an inside joke about quaking aspens. It's not funny when you tell it, but it's still really funny to us. So she needed that. I had knit her one very like it before, but I had knitted in a cotton a glossy cotton from Knit Picks, and it doesn't block out, and so you couldn't block it out and see the pattern really well. So this one blocks out, you can see the pattern, and it's so soft. So hopefully she will get some use out of that. Turning the page. Oh, I also made 4 pair of socks in my quest to find a sock that fit my foot. The first pair I made were the Drippity Drop socks by Kay. It says Jones, but I feel like that's not her last name. I feel like I got it wrong. Kay Jones of the Bakery Bears podcast. And she has a pattern called the Drippity Drop socks with a thing called an umbrella toe. And so these are top down. And I hate the toes that decrease in the where it forms a pointed toe. It doesn't sit on my foot. Well, I have short hobbit feet, and those do not fucking work for my feet. So I really hate them. So I was on the hunt for something that was rounder, like a regular sock looks. And I was hunting, and I saw this in her patterns, and she said the umbrella toe, and I'm like, let me try that. And I love it. It's perfect. I love it. This was a cute little pattern, too. I really like it. I also love the heel. She has a square heel. It's a gusset decrease like a slip stitch, but it's an offset slip stitch, and it's a square heel formation when it's done, and I love it as well. I knitted in some stash yarn Dragonfly Fibers Genie Sock, and I do not like this yarn, and it's peeling very badly. Like, I have not worn these a lot, less than 10 times total, and they're peeling like mad. Just crazy. Insane. But like, it's got a cute little umbrella toe, and let me see if I can show. No, you can't see it because of all the peeling. Oh, it's just terrible. But I love the pattern, so I will knit the pattern again for sure. I won't buy any more of this yarn. When I posted it on Facebook, all of my friends loved the colorway. These are not my colors. This was stashed from my friend Cynthia that passed. I think she maybe has one more skein of this yarn down there. I won't use it for socks. I'll find something else to use it for. And after that, I won't buy any more of that yarn. I don't like it. It peels way too badly. So that's one pair of socks. The second pair I knit after that was called the Sign of Four. It was a Sherlock sock by Ann Hansen, also top down. And I knit it out of some yarn that I picked up when I went to Indiana to visit my heterosexual life partner, Sarah Lloyd. And that's our joke, because Jay and Silent Bob call each other that, and we are Jay and Silent Bob. I'm Jay, because I'm not silent, shockingly enough. Anywho, tangent much. The yarn I picked up there was a locally dyed yarn, which is why I picked it up. It is Bean Blossom Fibers. Their string bean sock, and the colorway is Pumpkin Patch. So this is the heel I was talking about, because I modified this pattern to use the umbrella toe from Kay Jones and the gusset heel that is square, so that you've got this underneath your heel. And while it is a slip stitch, it's offset so it's not straight up and down. So it feels less squishy on the back of my heel, which I really like. But yeah, so I love these little socks. So lots of people knit Christmas socks. I'm going to be knitting myself a selection of fall/Halloween socks. And this was my first pair in the pumpkin patch. I really think it's cute. The pattern is, I think I will make, I've got enough left to make a second pair of socks, which I will think I will. And the pattern is it's just pearls offset. Very, but I think I'll knit another pair of the Drippity Drop socks out of this colorway because I have enough left to do another pair of short socks. I don't make longer socks because I have pudgy calves, and that's fucking pointless. So I do shorty socks. So then I decided to try to do toe-up socks, and I found a pattern called Tinny by Marika Lepisto. And I knit it in Plucky Knitter Primo in the colorway Starlings. And holy shit, this is a good yarn. Yeah, I love it. I've already been like, I should buy more. But I have so much in the basement. They're just not in colors I like, right? So, but this is an easy little sock. It has got it's not a rounded toe. It is a rounder toe. The next one I knit, I will sub out. I found a different toe that I like better for toe up. Much more like a reverse engineered umbrella toe, which I will use in the future. But it's a decent little toe. It's not nearly as pointy as some I don't like. It's a simple pattern. The pattern itself doesn't have the repeats on the foot. I added those, and the repeats are supposed to be actually this long. And I left out. So as you're knitting the pattern, you're supposed to do a pattern row twice before going on to the next step in the pattern. And I only did it once. And then I went, well, that's perfect for my little short feet. I really like that. That was the best mistake I ever made. So yeah, I did 3 repeats on the foot, 1 repeat around here, and then the official repeat here, and then 1 by 1 ribbing at the top. But this is the thing. Oh, this heel. It is a garter stitch German short row heel. Not a single even beginning of a hole. Just that beautiful. It's so soft. There's no ridge. I guess if I pull it out, I can. No holes. No holes down here. Nothing. Oh my God. Do I love it. So these are currently my favorite socks. And this yarn is just so soft. It's wonderful. So I actually sleep in these a lot. And the yarn. Oh, so one addition starting with this that I've been adding to my socks is ribbing across the arch of my foot, because I have my foot is small, but it's wide, but it has a really high arch. And I hate it when something doesn't feel like it's touching the bottom of my foot and it's sliding around. And so I added ribbing, and I love it. And I will add that to all of my socks going forward. So that is sock number 3 that I have finished. And then I made a set of Franken socks. And so this is just, I stopped on the way back from Indiana in Illinois at Leading Men Fiber Arts. And they had just gone to a show and taken most of the yarn with them. So they didn't have a lot of their actual yarn there. But one of the things they had, like I said, I wanted to knit some Halloween socks, was this colorway, Fright Night. And so I bought it, and I wanted to just let it be the star of the show. Like, I didn't want to use a pattern. I just wanted to let it be the thing. But then I really wanted to try contrasting cuffs, heels, and toes. because I'd never done that before. And I see everybody do it, and they're real pretty on the Instagram and the Ravelry pages. So I went online and ordered a custom dye job of their Fright Set, the colorway Fright Night in minis. So when that came in, I stained those up and made my Frankensock. That's Frankensock 1 and Frankensock 2. So the reason I call them Frankensock is because I mushed up 2 patterns I found, and turning the page, I found a toe that is a round toe in a toe-up version on a thing called Sweet Vanilla Toe Up by Jules Heel. And I bought the pattern and took the toe and put it on this. And I have a nice round toe for my little Hobbitses feetses. She started off using, I don't know, Jenny's super stretchy toe up. I don't know what it's called. I don't. I found a Turkish cast on from Suzanne Bryan, who is my go-to on YouTube for learning anything. The way she teaches just goes into my brain and makes sense. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with anyone else. Everyone has a different way of learning, and someone will be the person that you love the best to learn from. Suzanne Bryan is mine. She's my go-to. I love her. But she has a Turkish cast on. I use the Turkish cast on. I had to fiddle with it a little bit because part of the way that she gets the rounded toe is that she knits with the tail of the yarn in the first row of stitches and then uses those as double stitches going forward. And so I had to fiddle with it a little bit to get that to work with a Turkish cast on, but it was like I did the first one not as good, and the second one I'm like, let me try it this way. Worked much better. So fiddle with things till you like it. And then of course I put the ribbing on the bottom like I like, and then I use the German short row heel from the Tinny because I love it so much. And then just regular old 2x2 rib bind off. I have not worn them. They're sitting in the closet in a box for next Halloween. Because, I mean, this is not a fall sock. This is a Halloween sock. If I knit a fall sock, I could still wear it and justify it in my brain. But when you knit a Halloween sock and it's past Halloween, you're done. You're done. Done. Okay. The other thing I've knitted since then is a hat that I wanted to knit for a really long time because I wanted to try out the top of the hat, because the top of the hat looks like this. And I was like, I need to find out how that works. So it's sat in my queue forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever. And finally I was like, I am going to make this now. So I went down to my stash and I pulled out a bunch of Mad Tosh Merino Light. And I pulled out a beautiful, beautiful gold. Don't know what it's called. It's beautiful gold. But it's from Cynthia's stash. And it was so freaking moth chewed. It was just bits. And it was going to be so frustrating. And it was super washed, so you couldn't spit joint it together. And it was going to be so frustrating. And I was like, fuck it. Because it was going to be this first color here. Because this is my subtle nod to elementals. So air, fire, water, earth. And then this colorway is literally called Penumbra. So spirit. So I am officially over singles and fingering. I won't be doing those again. And I have a lot of them. But I can't guarantee they're not moth chewed. So I'm probably going to try to find homes for those someplace because I'm not going to make anything out of them. I don't like them. They're too splitty. They're too like too drapey. Like literally the only thing you can knit with them is a shawl. But if you're, I mean, that's going to incorporate that drape. But then I like lace work in my shawls, and then it doesn't pull out and show the lace work as nicely. So I'm officially over singles. I wasn't, they were the hot new thing when I first started knitting, and so I was kind of into them. But yeah, I'm really over them. I found a home for this hat though. I know somebody that wants it, so the way it will go. I hope they don't mind it being pretty big, because it's pretty big. Because singles, not a lot of pulling. You know what I'm saying? Okay. I finally knit the Ursa, and I'm wearing it. I'm wearing the Ursa that I knit, and I love it. One thing I did differently is I added a I-cord bind off to the edge. And so one thing, let me not do that. That was bad. Why is my hand still... Let us not ask these questions, Mary. So this is one of the ones where I realized, what I'm doing is picking up too many stitches here. I'm just picking up too many, and then it gets a little wobbly because I've picked up too many stitches. This one I'm not mad at because I didn't pick up way too many. It's not terrible. It's just a little wibbly. But I really like the more structured edge of the I-cord. And then just did the regular bind off on the edge, but it was rolling. But I was on Instagram, and I was scrolling along on Instagram, and I saw one of the local yarn shops, Be Woolen, blocking a blanket. But they were blocking a blanket using a steamer. And I went, I'm getting me a steamer. Got me a Rowenta. Don't know what it's called. Can't read it. Oh, it's backwards. Oh, well. So I got me a Rowenta steamer. Steamed these perfect. Do not roll at all. Love them. Okay, I'm going to stand up. Or I'm going to try to stand up to show you this a little bit better. Finished it up. Yeah. Super comfy. And I had mentioned, stop it. This is so jimmy rigged to have up where I want it. It's ridiculous. But I'm trying not to buy a tripod. Let's just see how that goes. But anyway, I use the Plymouth Yarn Chunky Merino Superwash in the light charcoal and the heather charcoal heather. And this is super soft and squishy. And it is a single. But I don't mind knitting the giant singles nearly as much as the little singles. And this is soft and comfortable enough. I literally was back in the yarn shop I bought it from yesterday. A shop called Amazing Threads in Maple Grove near the Twin Cities. So it's a bit of a drive for me. I mean, Stephen B is literally a mile from my front door. But I just like Amazing Threads. They've got a really good selection. They've got it laid out not fancy, just very organized in a fashion that makes perfect sense to my brain. I can go right down and go, oh, here's the chunkies, here's the worsted, my brain loves it. But it's got a lot of nice yarn in there. So, I mean, they've got nice hand dyeds. They've got nice woolly wools. They've got baby knitting yarn, which was what I was there for yesterday. I really like it. And so they had an orangey rusty color back in stock, and they had more than enough for me to make another one of these. And I was like, you already have another sweater planned, another raglan sweater planned that you already own the yarn for. How about you make it first? So I left it there, even though I really wanted it. So I'm super happy I finished this. I love it. I'm happy with it. One other thing I finished that I'm not wearing, I finished my Harvest cardigan by Tin Can Knits, and I love it. I love it, I love it, I love it. Also gray. Gray is not my color. My besties have informed me of that again and again. They're like, we're stealing that. But it goes with a lot of the stuff, clothes that I have in my closet currently. It goes with a lot of them because a lot of the clothes I have in my closet currently are things that I bought to like wear to work and are not my favorite colors. They're just, I found a shirt that fit well and bought 5 colors they had because I hate freaking thinking about it. And so having a sweater that goes with them works really well. So this is it. It's the Harvest cardigan. I can't show it off really well. I'll try to show it off. I'll put it on the mannequin in another video to show it off better. But I love it. I would knit another one in a heartbeat. I did make a lot of adaptations to it because one of the problems I have is that my top is like 2 sizes smaller than my bottom. Like I have a small bust, I have small shoulders, I have a medium-sized stomach. Like it's not, I don't have a flat stomach, and it's like as big as my boobs. And then my butt is huge. And so I added, as I was knitting this in the back, you can see where the colors change. One of the skeins was a different dye lot. But as I was knitting it down the back, I broke it up into 20 stitches, and every 20 stitches, every like 4th row, I would add a stitch to increase it out to flare around my butt. And I only did it in the back and didn't add any in the front because I just wanted it to be bigger in the back and then still hang straight in the front. And it worked. God damn. Fucking A. So yeah, I love this. I wear it all the time now. All the time. Got lots of compliments on it. And it's really soft. I love it. Oh, and it's knit out of Madeline Tosh Vintage, the Turn colorway. And I don't know if I bought this before or after they got sold to Jimmy Bean Wool. So this vintage doesn't feel the same to me as this vintage, which is also knit out of Madeline Tosh Vintage. They do not feel the same. And I know this is older. So I think this was knit out of the new base after they got sold to Jimmy Bean's. It's still nice. I don't think it's as nice. So for what that's worth, that's my opinion. What I'm currently making. This is the Creature Comforts Cardi by Madeline Tosh, actually. It's an older pattern. It's been in my queue for 7 or 8 years. But I loved this oak leaf pattern. It is a shrug, not a cardigan, even though it's called a cardi. It's a shrug. So just trying to get this to turn here without knocking over the steamer. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. There we go. Just a little shrug. I still need to, I'm finished except I'm supposed to put ribbing around the armholes. This is why I really bought the steamer. Because I watched Suzanne on how to seam up, uses mattress seaming, which for anyone who's done medieval historical recreation is literally spiral lacing. It's amazing. I watched the video and went, spiral lacing. Cool, I know how to do that. But it's pretty much perfect. Like, just pulls it together incredibly. But in her thing, she's like, well, you need to make sure I like really crisp edges to do this so you can see what you're doing easier. And I went, I'm not. And then I tried to block it out wet on the floor, and that was not going well. I said, I'm buying a steamer. And so I blocked that out, and then that was so easy to do. So the pattern, as written, is knit flat. And I read a whole lot of project pages before I knit it. A whole lot of project pages. And took because like I said, it's an old pattern. So there were a lot of project pages. And I took the best notes out of all of them. And one of the best notes was do a provisional cast on, leave the stitches live. When you get to the end, leave the stitches live, block it, seam it. So yeah, using the steamer with live stitches, way easier. Seam it up, and then do your ribbing in the round. Because what you're supposed to do is ribbing, knit, ribbing, seam. Yeah, no. So, cast it on provisional, did the knitting, left it, did the edges, seamed, picked this. They didn't have to pick up stitches. They were all, well, pulled out the provisional and put it on a needle, put it on all one big needle, did it all the way around, did the ribbing, did a shawl collar up here. So I made this bigger at the top to do a shawl collar. I used German short rows. And then I made the armholes, like one of the best notes was somebody that was larger said, yeah, those armholes were too little. I didn't seam it up nearly as long as they said. And I said, I like that. So I only seamed up about 8 inches. I also added, I don't know how in the pattern, like their biggest one, I don't know how wide it was, how many stitches they cast on, but I did 88. And then the center, so I did 88. I didn't cast on 88 stitches. I did 88 stitches per side, and then the center panel, that is the oak leaf, that's 38. So however many stitches that is, that's how many I cast on. But it's 88 per side. And I think their biggest size was like 72 something. It just didn't like, I'm like, this is an old pattern and they were not very size inclusive back in the day. Let me make this bigger. And I'm very happy with it. Like, I'm glad I did that. I like the size of it. I like using all the tips. And now all I have to do is pick up those stitches and do a ribbing around the size, and it's done. And that project that has been in my queue and in my heart forever will be done. And it will be like, it's going to be put away for the season because, like I said, we're getting into the cold weather. But next fall, when it starts to get just a little bit chilly and it's not cool enough to wear a long sleeve shirt yet, but you want just a little something else, that will be perfect. So I'm looking forward to wearing that next year when it's done. Okay. And that is knit, even though it's a Madeline Tosh pattern. It's knit out of Miss Babs Yowza pumpkin, roasted pumpkin. So Miss Babs did a pre-order. You could pre-order how many you wanted. And I ordered 4. And this is taking less than 3. So I have an extra. So I will probably knit like a hat and a cowl to go with this. And then I'll just be fall as fuck. But in the roasted pumpkin, and you know, and her Yowza skeins are 560 yards in a skein, so they're these giant, in fact, I have some to show you in a minute, skeins. The yarn itself, I had some older Yowza in the stash from Cynthia that I used to knit, I don't know what, something else in the past. And it seemed to have been a different base. Like, they used to sell Yowza as a worsted or a light worsted, and they've downsized it to a DK. And I think it's because they actually changed bases, because it's a little splittier than it used to be. And I don't think most people have a problem with it, but I get in this mode where I'm trying to knit really fast, and I inevitably right through. Not terrible, like not enough to make me go, I never want to use this yarn again. I still really love it. It's just something to be aware of, that if you're trying to knit fast, it can be a little splitty. Other things I'm working on currently is I started a project for a friend of mine, a pair of mittens called Party Bones, and it's by Stephanie Lotvin. And it's being knitted in a lot of different yarns. This is a Miss Babs Yummy 2-ply. I think it's Starling. I think that's called Starling. And then, what's this being? This one is Twist Light by Madeline Tosh. It was supposed to be white, and I have some white yarn, but I had this extra from a project, and it's close enough to white. I said, fuck it. Jerry will love it. She's not going to be mad at me for it. And then 4 of the colors are, one of the things I inherited in the stash was a set of the, let me look at the name. That would be helpful. Wonderland Yarn sells sets of 5 that go together. And this, I don't know the name of this one because it was a partial. There were 4. So here are 4 of the colors. And then what I did is I had knitted out of Miss Bab's Yummy 2-ply. I had knit a big shawl for a friend of mine, and I had a bunch of leftovers in like greens and purples. So I'm taking the ends of those and using that because that's only 2 little rows here at the beginning. So I'm doing 1 in one color, and then this is going to be color work, and then there will be another one up here. And so this is supposed to, I'm doing the lined version of this pattern, and you're supposed to pick up stitches, and I hate picking up stitches with a passion. So I did a provisional cast on. That's the blue. I did a provisional cast on, and then I modified the pattern because this first thing is supposed to be purl 1, knit 1, purl 1. And so what I did is I knit 2 rows, did a purl row, and knit 3 rows, and then that way it will fold when I add on the lining and have a little, that purl that I put in there will give it a nice fold. It'll fold in easily. So that's all I've got started. That's it. That's what you're looking at. But that's got started to work on. I'm hoping to get those done by Yule so I can give her a Yule gift. Because I'm real bad at presents. Like, real fucking bad. But I did order my bestie Wendy a present. And it takes 6 to 8 weeks to come in. So there is an off chance I will get to gift it to her in the holiday season. Instead of getting it in early and going, here you go. Which is what I normally do. I'm real bad. Like, if I find something you're going to love, you're not going to get it for a birthday or Christmas. You're going to get it as soon as it hits my hot little hands. You'll probably know about it before it hits my hot little hands. I found, like when I was in Indiana, I found this big metal turtle decoration at one of these little, because we hit up a little town called Nashville, Indiana, and it's very artsy and cutesy, and we accidentally fell into a fall festival. We could not have been more bougie white girls if we'd tried. Accidentally. We didn't know. But so we went into this one little shop and had all these pretty, and so Wendy loves her sea turtles, and it was a sea turtle, and it had the blue teals that she loved in it, but then it also had orange coppers like me. So I literally told her about it while I was buying it. That's how bad I am. I'm like, I bought you a thing. It's coming home. I have no weight in me. If I'm excited, you're getting it. But if you have to wait 6 to 8 weeks, I can at least not say anything. So hopefully she'll get a gift too. So maybe 2 gifts this year. And then the final thing I have, just stick with me. We bounce all over the place. The final thing I have put on the needles is another pair of socks. And it's called the Clark socks. Not the Clark socks, just Clark socks by Jacqueline Salem. And I went into the stash again because I'm trying to use up yarn. And pulled out Hazel Knits Artisan Sock, the Wild Rice colorway. It's pretty. And this is a cable sock pattern. It's got a cable in the front. It's got a little cable in the back. And a handmade was going, duh. Because I really hate casting on an edge for a cuff down, a top down, and then having it being too tight. And I went, why don't I do a provisional cast on, knit the sock, pick up the stitches, knit the ribbing, and then I can do a stretchy bind off at the top. Duh. So that's what I'm doing. But then I put ribbing on and I'm like, let me try a 3-1 ribbon. Nope, that did not work out. So I'm taking that all back out now. Going to start at the base again. Going to do my normal, which is knit an entire round first. And then do a 1x1 rib. Because I like that better. I'm also going to put in the square heel and the umbrella toe, which they do not have, from the Drippity Drop Socks by Kay Jones, because I love them so much. Also, this was a pattern for 64 inches. And that's going to be too big for my foot, I'm pretty sure. Even with the cable shrinking it up some. So I dropped mine down to 60 and modified the pattern a little bit. Not too much. Like, I liked the look of it. That's why I was knitting it. But I just don't want something that's too big. That's just going to drive me crazy. So I dropped it down to 60. I think it will still be a little big, but I will still be putting the ribbing on the bottom of the foot because I always do now. And that should help. That's all I'm making now. Except for the vampire wings, which are still on the needles. And I have scheduled holiday knitting for, I'm going to knit on that. I haven't knit on it in months. But I'm going to start picking that back up and knitting on it when I'm done with this. It's going to get picked up and knit an hour a day at least. So I hope to have it finished by the holidays as well. Fingers crossed. Plan knitting is the Woodwardia that I talked about earlier. And also some baby knits. A friend of mine, my friend Jerry, who I'm knitting the mittens for, her daughter is having a baby in April. So I have plenty of time. But I'm enamored of, like, I went through and picked out a few bits and bobs. Like, I'm not knitting a whole bunch of things, but I wanted to knit a couple of pair of little mitts so they don't scratch themselves, a couple of pair of little baby socks, a little set of booties, and one thing I'm just knitting for myself, and I haven't found the yarn for it yet. And I may knit it out of the yarn it calls for. It's just, I really hate to give new mothers anything that is not throw it in the fucking wash and wash it yarn. You just had a newborn, fuck anything else, right? Just fuck it. But I think it's going to look best in the Madeline Tosh. I think it calls for, I don't remember. But it's a Madeline Tosh sock yarn, basically. And not the sock yarn. It's a Madeline Tosh fingering. It's not a single. And it's a sleep sack for a newborn. And it's got the owl pattern on it. That's so popular on Ravelry for years now. And I've been wanting to knit that owl pattern because it's a cable pattern. And I like cables, obviously. The whole reason I started knitting was to knit a cabled Aran sweater. I'm working up to it, right? Like, I'm learning how to knit sweaters and it's still on the agenda someday. But I like cables. And so I really wanted to knit the cables. So I'm going to knit a little sleep sack for a newborn that has the little owls around the top. And then there's a little hat that I'll knit out of the same yarn so that they match. It's a little newborn hat. I still hate thinking about doing it with stuff that doesn't go in the washer. It still makes me twitch. But I did buy some things. So I am going to knit a different sleep sack that has, it's a drops design, I think. Like, I didn't write these down because I'll write them down when I'm actually knitting them. But it's a little cabled sleep sack. And I bought the yarn for it. It's a DK weight yarn. Mom requested blues and greens. So mint green frit. And this is the Sidar Snuggly. So I'm going to knit a little cabled sleep sack that has little buttons at the bottom. And then this one I'm knitting for Mom, basically, because I think she'll think it's really cute. It's a little dino hat. So it's a little hat, and then you put little spikes on the top. It's little dinosaur spikes like a stegosaurus. Right. And then finally, I'm going to knit. The little mitts are supposed to be worsted, and the little booties are supposed to be worsted, and I'm just going to hold DK double and knit those. So hopefully she will like these. I will enjoy knitting them because they're so tiny. I'll be able to knock, if I have a couple hours here and there, just knock out some little baby knits. So I'm excited about that. And that's the only planned knits that I have for the rest of the year. I really want to I'm going to cast on the Woodwardia, but my main focus are going to be the vampire wings and the mitts. But I've met me, and I know, like, especially with the color work, I will need a break from it because it will hurt my brain. Well, it doesn't hurt my brain, but I'm real critical of my own color work, like my stitches. I think I pull them too much. I think the thing gets distorted. Other people are like, that looks great to me. My brain doesn't like it yet. And I knit a whole bunch of 4 or 5 stockings over the winter just for practice. Like, when I knew they were just for me and I was just doing them for practice, my brain was like, okay, we can do this, and wasn't so critical and was willing to just keep going to get the practice in. Worked great. I want to do that again with, I want to make myself sets of Halloween stockings. And I even bought the Cascade yarn for it this fall and then never got around to it. But maybe I'll do that in February when, it's terrible out and who wants to leave the house in Minnesota? Unless I'm in Indiana again in February. We'll see. So that's the only things I really have on the agenda. I'm looking out the window because I'm in my bedroom and it's fall and the wind's blowing and I'm distracted. I'm also really bad at not looking at myself and instead of looking at the camera like I'm supposed to. So, sorry, I'm not good at this. That brings us to acquisitions. Oh my God, and we're already an hour in. Acquisitions. And I have a shit ton of acquisitions. Because I started working again, and I want orange yarn. I don't want blues or reds or purples. I want orange. It's my favorite color. I would like some actual orange yarn. So I bought some. So I do not need the book anymore because I'll just read you off the skeins. So when I was in Indiana, when I stopped at Lehman Fiber Arts on the way back, I bought more yarn. This is Polworth DK. It's got 246 yards in a skein for 100 gram. It's 100% superwash Polworth. And this colorway is saffron. And this colorway is spiced apple cider. I have no idea what I'm going to do with it. I just loved it, so I bought it. Yeah, I have no idea what I'm doing with any of this. Let's just be clear. I stopped at a yarn shop in, well, crap. It was another town near Lehman Fiber Arts, because what I did is did a search for places near here, and it was down on the river, and it was really cute, and I don't know where it was, and I don't know the name of it. But I bought some Stitch Together yarn, and it's their Stitch Smooth Sock, and it was their September 2021 colorway called False Fall. Look at it! Look at the pretty. I don't care. I don't care what I'm going to do with it. I just needed to own the pretty in my life. So I did. Also at Leading Men, Not their brand of yarn, but yarn they had in their shop. This is Flywheel, which is 100% pure virgin wool. It's 170 yards. I believe this is a worsted weight. And the colorways are Elm and Monarch. Monarch? And Elm. Pretty, right? So that was from my trip. There might be more down in there from my trip. I don't know. Oh, there is. Also at the little yarn store I don't remember the name of, that was in a town I don't remember the name of, but it was on the river for sure. I bought some Dream in Color. It was from their pop-up club. It's their October 2021 colorway, and it's in their smushy cashmere fingering. And this is just delightful to touch. Love it. So that was also from the trip. The trip. Then, when I ordered my roasted pumpkin from Miss Babs, which I still have one skein of left. No need to open it. You can see the color right here. And it's beautiful, right? Right. They had in Yowza, they had a colorway that's discontinued, but they still had some Yowza left. And they had 4 skeins. And I kind of regret not buying all 4 at this point. These skeins are pricey. And so I'm like, yeah, you don't really need to buy 4 skeins of this and then 4 skeins of something you have no plans for. Like, I knew what I wanted to do with that. That was actually bought for a project. This was just bought because if I didn't buy it, someday my soul would cry. I bought 2 skeins of Fireball. So, yeah, here's the other one. I needed it, okay? My soul was crying. It needed help. I gave it yarn help. And then they also had one thing that Miss Babs does is they will do, the Babettes are the ones that they can recreate. And then they have basic colorways that are not like hand painted. They're just a base tonal that are regular. But then they have wild irises that is something that they've created sort of accidentally and they can't recreate. So you buy them while they have them or you never get it again. And this one was called, they named Deepest Desire. So that needed to come live with me too. So I got 2 skeins of it too. So Miss Babs got a chunk of my money this year. And it wasn't even for yummy 2-ply gradient sets, which is what they used to get my money for. What else we got? Oh, and then, so shawlography was the thing, and everybody was knitting shawlography. And here's the deal with shawlography. With Stephen West. Stephen West writes really interesting patterns to knit. I don't like the way most of them look when they're finished. I just don't. He's done one that I really like that I actually think I may knit at some point, and that's the Slip Stravaganza. I think that's what it was called. But this year was shawlography. Was that what it was called? I think so. And lots of people were selling sets for it. And I bought a set with no intention of knitting the shawl, which I bought it before the shawl dropped and before people started posting, and it's completely done now, and you can go see what it looks like. And I'm really glad I had no intention of knitting it, because yeah, it is not for me at all. Like, people really say they enjoyed knitting it, that it was really fun to knit. That's great. I will find other things to knit that are fun to knit. Are things that I hate knitting, but when it's done, I love it. Because this right here, not fun to knit. Love it. Just not my cup of tea. Just not. But this yarn that somebody dyed up for it was my cup of tea. Could it get more fall? Yeah, me and fall were tight. We like each other a lot. So this is by Huck and Ray Fiber Studios. Can we read it all as once? And it is in her BFL sock. Even better, it's BFL. And we've got the cider colorway. The pollen colorway. Golden hour. Claret. Let me tell you what, this is blown out. It is much darker than it appears. It's a very dark, rich, deep claret color. It's looking a lot lighter. It's so dark in person. It's just exquisite. And then last but certainly not least, the one I bought it for, honestly, Fireside. Oh, yes, I love it so much. Yeah. So, and this is a really nice, like, I want to buy more yarn from this dyer because these are so, I mean, they're just rich and lovely, and they feel great because it's the BFL, and came in really cute packaging. But like the rest of her colors are just, they're not me. Like, she does a lot of more natural earth tones, pastels, and I love the deep riches or the oranges. So, but I will keep my eye on her, and if she does something else that I think is gorgeous, I will buy from her again in a hot second. If you don't love my colors, but you love different colors, I recommend her. And I have purchased some mini skeins off the Intertubes too. I waited too long. Toad Hollow Yarns released a collection called the Mountain Collection. They have a whole story that goes through it. And it was really very fall. And it was all of these colors in bigger skeins. And I waited around and waited around and waited around and waited around and didn't get them. That one is the one that combines them all. And then I got these. And I'm kind of glad that I didn't get the full ones because these are a little more pastel-y than I like. But I may do all of these together in a hat. Or I may make a pair of socks. I do like it enough to definitely want to use it in a project for me. But once I had them in my hand, they were not screaming Mary because they're more pastel-y. And my mom ruined me on just fucking ruined me on pastels. But then I ordered some from Giddy Yarns, which is a UK dyeing company, and she had a bunch of skeins, and I got these with the intention of using them to make socks, maybe heels, cuffs, and toes on some other yarn. They look orangey every time I put them on camera, but in person they're all very like Christmas red. This one looks much more orangey on camera than it does in person. But the others are looking pretty good right now for Christmas red. No, no, that one looks more orangey. In person, these are all very like cherry Christmas red. Um, what I may do is put them together with some green yarn and see how they look matched up against plain green yarn for socks and see if they still look Christmas ready or not. Because while I intend to have many more Halloween socks, I would like a pair or two of Christmas socks. Now that I have found socks, a way of knitting socks that make my feet happy, because that's been my problem all along, is I could knit a sock. That was not a problem. But the patterns I were knitting, like I would put on my feet and go, I hate this. I have knit, like, I have sock yarn here that I bought that, or I had inherited, that is just like some opal or, some generic sock yarns that are just for knitting socks that usually make their own pattern. And I have tried multiples of those. I mean, I've probably knit 10, 12 pairs of socks overall in my knitting career, looking, and then just like would knit one or two and give up because I'm like, yeah, this is not it. And finally I decided, no, I'm going to find a sock. And luckily I started searching for round toes, and Kay Jones is one of the first ones I hit on. Thank goodness, because that umbrella toe, chef's kiss, love it. And then yesterday, I also went to the Yarnery in St. Paul, which has moved to a new location, which has a little parking lot now. So it's very much easier to get into, and it's a lovely store now on the inside. And they have got all the sheepy yarns that you could want, like imported, nice. And I've been wanting to try some Brooklyn tweed for a while. So I got a skein of Loft in American Targhee Columbia wool. And the colorway is Embers. So I'm excited to try that. And then some West Yorkshire spinners, because all of the lovely ladies in England that I listen to who do podcasts talk about this a lot. So I got some for me to try out. And I know this is going to shock you, some socks. But yeah, so I bought that yesterday. Oh, I have one more. So out at Amazing Threads, I took both of my besties, Wendy and Vicky. I feel like I should explain, because I call Vicky my sister because she is the sister of my heart. Because we're both single children and we decided we're sisters, the end. So she is my sister, but she's also my bestie. So I took them out there to Amazing Threads because I'm like, you guys need to see this place because this place is awesome. It's my new favorite yarn store. And Wendy has, over the pandemic, picked up crocheting again because she had crocheted as a kid and she was sitting around and she's like, I've got all this time. I want something to do with my hands because, pandemic. And so she picked up crocheting and she's getting pretty good. And so I had bought her a bunch of, I like using crocheted squares in my kitchen for pot holders or, sitting pots and pans on, or even washing dishes with. And so I'm like, if I buy you a bunch of dishy, would you just crochet up some squares? And that way you can practice new stitches and new patterns, and you don't have to worry about how good they look because I'm literally going to be using them for pots and pans. So she knit me up a whole stack full. It's great. I love them all. I use them all the time. But I wanted to show her a yarn store because they have yarn in there that you could absolutely use for crocheting as well as knitting. Because sometimes crocheting uses up a lot more yarn, and a lot of the yarn stores just carry like hand-dyed stuff, and that's too expensive to crochet with. But sometimes you want something nicer than a big box store has. So I'm like, let's go out there. So I took them out. They both loved it. And I was looking at La Bien Ami because I have never used it, and they had gotten a huge shipment in. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be gone in a heartbeat. Let me look at this. But as much as I looked at it, I found this yarn from 6 and 7 fibers. And it is their alfalfa base. And I just fell in love. And I fell in love hard. And so this is basically a fade for me. So this is pumpkin juice, which pulls out some colors in, or no, I was going to start with the gorse, and then pumpkin juice has some of that yellow in there. And then onto Oxford, which has some of the oranges. And then onto the Burrow, which has, see the purples that match, but it has that green in it. And then from that Post Box, which has some of that same matching green in there. And I was like, oh my God. So I bought all 5 skeins and didn't get any little bit of me. And I've never heard of this yarn before, but it's really nice. Like the colors are great. It's really nice to the touch. So I'm happy. Okay, so that is all the yarn, all the knitting, all the things. Gotta take a drink because I'm freaking thirsty now. I bought a great candle at the yarnery yesterday too. Made in Minnesota, and this one's called Up North. It smells really good. Love it. I would like to say I finished the garden strong. I did not. I fell into knitting, and the garden kind of got away from me this fall. And in fact, the whole yard got away from me. The yard is not winterized at all this year like it was last year. I'll deal with it in spring. Because in spring, I will want to get the fuck out of the house and go garden again. So, instead, what we're going to do is, real quick, we're going to talk about 2 movies. 1 Marvel movie, 1 not Marvel movie. Dune was fucking amazing. I read the book once, many long years ago, and it, like Lord of the Rings, was not a book I was a fan of. Because some books are written in such a way, I'm very much character driven. Like I like the characters and the interactions and a little bit of background description about where we are, but mainly the characters and dialogue. And both Lord of the Rings and Dune is written with a lot of description, and I find that boring. And I tend to skim over it, and so then sometimes I skim important stuff, and so but much like Lord of the Rings, where I love those movies to the nth degree and have watched them a trillion times and have watched all of the back footage on the extended versions, and every second of everything about the Lord of the Rings, I've watched it multiple times. Dune is in that category for me. Well, now, mind you, I love Denis Villeneuve as a director. Like, I've watched his movies, and I find them stunning. I find them deep. I love them. I never liked Blade Runner, the original. And I'm a Ridley Scott fan, too. Like, I tend to find his movies addictive. Like, if I'm flipping around and it's on, let me watch that. But I never liked Blade Runner. Like, I watched the remastered versions and the blah, 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 blah. And it's fine, but I never was into it. But Blade Runner 2049, I love that movie. I thought it was a masterpiece. So I went into Dune with high hopes, and all of my hopes were met. I know people that have had quibbles with it, and one of the quibbles that I heard a friend of mine have was the sound. Meanwhile, I thought the sound was another character in the movie, and it was really important to me, all of that sound that came along with it. I loved it. Like, I watched it at home because I have HBO Max thanks to a friend. I love you, Alicia. But while it is still amazing and stunning and great, it doesn't have that punch of impact that you have when you're sitting in the theater and that Zimmer soundtrack just comes out and shakes your butt. Like, especially when the sand dunes and the vibrations and you can feel it, and that's the worms and okay. I recommend this movie, obviously. I loved it a lot. And then there's the Eternals. And I liked the Eternals. And you know me, I'm the MCU fangirl. And I liked this movie. And I thought it was a really good movie. And I thought it was also beautiful and worth seeing on the big screen. And I liked the sound. And I thought the actors were great. It's just a lot. A lot. Like, Marvel usually doesn't pack this much story into a movie. One of my friends, because 10 of us went to see it together. One of my friends afterwards went, that was kind of like a DC movie. They shoved a lot in there. Now, she's right. I can't argue. But unlike a lot of the DC movies, this one was, number one, visible. It was not in the dark. And number two, there was never a moment where you're like, I don't understand what happened. What's the story going on here? The story was very well laid out. It was just a lot of story. Giving you a lot. I don't know how often I will rewatch this movie because it's a lot. I imagine as they start picking threads out of it to incorporate it into other movies, which is obviously what they have planned with this, I will absolutely rewatch it to catch up on the bits and pieces. But I really liked all the characters. I loved the representation. It was beautiful. The story was really well told. It's just a lot. So I have the way I rate Marvel movies are my favorites, good, and then there's like two at the bottom that I'm like, meh. And one of them ones is, of course, The Incredible Hulk with Ed Norton. And even though I love Ed Norton, that movie was made by Universal, not Marvel, and it was bleh. This movie goes in the good, not my favorites, not the worst. It's in the good section. I'm looking forward to Spider-Man, but I have a lot of trepidation about it because I am afraid of the too much in a movie of Spider-Man 3-ness. I'm afraid of Sony. I'm always afraid of Sony. I'm terrified of Sony. So, of course I'm going to go see it. Of course I'm going to go see it opening night, but I'm still trepidatious. Meanwhile, I'm super stoked for Hawkeye. Hawkeye looks so good next Thursday. So how many days away am I now? It's Sunday, 1, 2, 3, 4 days. 4 days and I get some Hawkeye. I have loved Haley Steinfeld since True Grit when she was 13 and stole scenes from Jeff Bridges and Matt Damon. Just stole it from them. Just took it and walked off with them. And she is so great. Loved her in Bumblebee. Thought she was great in Bumblebee. Of course, that was the best Transformers movie. Let's not argue. But loved her in that. And she's in the MCU. And she's Kate Bishop. And she's adorable. And Pizza Dog. I'm so happy. I'm also really excited about The Witcher coming out in December because as the meme world on Facebook tells us, some characters don't clean up good, they grunge up good, and Henry Cavill is one of them. But that's about all. I'm sorry for making you sit here for an hour and 18 minutes and listen to me ramble, but it is what it is. Hopefully I'll be doing these on a more regular basis now because one of the things that was taking up space and causing anxiety in my brain was whether or not I was going to have a job this winter. And my job hired me back, not full time, but they hired me back for 32 hours a week at least, and up to full time if there's enough work for it. So I will have benefits going through the fall so I can go back to the eye doctor and update my glasses, and I can go back to the dentist and get my teeth cleaned because they haven't been cleaned since spring of 2020. I think I went in and had them done the week before everything no, it was not the week. It was the day. I got home from the dentist and from a cleaning and got the email that everything was shutting down that day. So there we go. I'm excited about that. I'm glad. I'm probably going to have a little less money because they're dropping my pay rate down. And then I have to pay for my benefits out of my paycheck, which I haven't been doing as a temp. But, worth it in the long run. And if that means I have to try to get a job at a yarn store working part-time, how sad. Okay, everybody, have a good one. I will try to put some of this information in the description box. don't bet a lot of money on it though. I've met me. It would be better to look me up on Ravelry to look at everything because I put everything in Ravelry. Um, because I'm very organized and I like to keep track of things, and Ravelry is a very good platform for doing that. If you use it, it's very good for all of that. Like I keep track of my stash so I don't lose yarn. I keep track of all of my projects. I use project notes for future reference. So yeah, if you want any of this information, it will all be on Ravelry. I will put my Ravelry username and my Instagram name in the box so that you can at least look those up if you want, because I do post my projects on Instagram as I'm knitting them. Yeah, that's about it for the day. Have a good one, y'all.